Hello. Okay, great. The microphone's working and we'll start. Good evening. I am so glad all of you, both here at the library and online, have joined us for addressing heat and drought, safeguarding Montana's environment for human health with Julia Ryder. And Julia's with the Montana Health Professionals for a Healthy Climate. I think this talk is very timely. As all of you are very aware, here we had practically no winter. We had a snow drought. It was exceptionally warm over the last months. And everybody I've been talking to around town lately has been saying, well, what about the summer? I'm pretty worried. You know, it's probably going to be really hot and a drought and there'll be wildfires. And how can we protect ourselves? So that's why I'm so thrilled that Julia is here tonight to advise us on how to stay safe and how to be healthy. My name is Ann Reddy, and I am the chair of the Gallatin Valley Earth Day Committee. And tonight's talk is the fourth in a series of talks that are running from January all the way through April, culminating in our annual Earth Day Festival and also a 5K Earth Day Fun Run, which is, they're both on Saturday, April 25th at the fairgrounds here in Bozeman. If you'd like to see a recording of a past event, all our events in the series are recorded, then you can just go to our website, which is gallatinvalleyearthday.org, and you can see a whole slew of interesting videos there to watch. Now, right before I bring Julia up, I just want to take a few moments to thank our sponsors. All our events are free only because of the generous support from lots of businesses and organizations in our community. So I'd like to thank Greater Gallatin United Way as our fiscal sponsor, and then our premier sponsors that are supporting the whole series of talks. We have Toyota. They will be featuring their Toyota BZ electric car at the Earth Day Festival, so come and check that out. Also, Bozeman Greenville, they'll be there too. You can check them out. And Yellowstonian, it's a wonderful online magazine that I can't say enough about. If you are concerned and care about and interested in the wildlife in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, then that is a magazine for you. And also Montana Parent Magazine. And then, of course, all the volunteers that work together to produce all these events for you. So I promise I will invite Julie up in just 2 minutes, but I just wanted to let you know that after her presentation, we will have a question and answer session. So if you are here in the audience, if you can just raise your hand and Terry will bring the microphone over to you. That way, all the people that are joining us online can hear your question, and it will also get recorded. If you're joining us online, welcome again. And if you just look at your computer screen at the bottom, there's a Q&A there. If you click on that, then a little box will pop up. You can type in your question, and Rich here, our tech person, will read the question to Julia. So now it's my great pleasure to introduce Julia Ryder. Julia serves as the program manager for Montana Health Professionals for a Healthy Climate. With over 14 years of experience as a registered nurse in the emergency room here at Bozeman Health, she has developed educational materials specifically for healthcare professionals in Montana. Both during her clinical practice and her graduate studies, she worked on this. Julia holds a Master of Public Health degree from the University of Montana, and she holds a degree, a Bachelor of Science degree from Southern Utah University, along with a certificate in emergency medicine and environmental health. Her commitment to public health and environmental awareness was shaped by her experiences working as a backcountry guide in Moab, Utah, where she gained valuable insight into the health benefits of outdoor engagement. And in addition to her professional achievements, Julia balances her career with family life and her interests in horses, skiing, and the mountains. So if you'll just join me here in welcoming Julia to the stage. Thank you, Julia.
Can everyone hear me? The speaker here? Yeah. Annie did such a good job of introducing me. We can skip past my first slide, but I might just show it real quick because that's what it's about. If you're having problems seeing me on Zoom, I hope not. I hope you can still see me okay. Where to start? Annie already introduced me for my job. And yes, I did have about 14 years of experience working in health, like direct health, putting out fires. My interest in the connection between how our climate is affected by health started around 7 years ago. Montana Health Professionals for Healthy Climate, our work is to pull the connection between how reliant our health is on the health of the planet. If we teach communities this, it is a great way to help prevent a lot of diseases that are preventable, but also secure a future that, as you guys know with the next slide, for our children. So tonight I dedicate my talk and all my work in climate to my daughter, Tilly. This is the hard part about climate for me, and this is why I do my work, because as the World Health Organization states, almost 90% of the disease burden that is occurring as our planet warms is falling on the shoulders of children that are younger than 5 years old. And this is not just in undeveloped countries. This is in our country. This is in developed countries as well. So tonight I want more of a discussion. I really look forward to the discussion part because I have a lot of information. I'm going to try to make it quick because I really believe in solutions, and I absolutely believe that if you have a child in your life that you love, you need hope, and I deeply believe that there is hope, and I deeply believe that we can make change. Thanks to Tilly, I'm extra motivated to keep doing this work. So let's talk about Montana. Yes, Montana's changing, and not just because we have all these new apartments on every single corner. We are changing in temperature. This here is really easy data to get. You just go to the National Weather Service database, you type in month, you type in, state, month, and date, and it pulls up the highs and lows of every month for whatever year you want. So here, I just pulled up a few years to kind of get us on track and get us seeing that a very unbiased data shows that we are still increasing in temperature. Our summers from 2000 to now, roughly, or last summer to 2025, they're only going up a tiny bit. Great. But what I'm more concerned about are winters. And as we look between December of 2000 and December of 2010, there's already a pretty big jump. And I know last winter scared everybody, so we don't need to go into detail. I am not here to scare people. Yes, I am into raising alarms why we should change. And hopefully last winter was just a fluke, as we all say. Like, hopefully it will make up for itself. We all have those years, and that's fine. But it is still increasing. The Montana Climate Assessment in 2017 did an incredible amount of work and research on how temperature is changing in Montana. And back in 2017, 9 years ago, they found that the temperature in Montana had increased roughly between 2 and 3 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay. So what I often get is when I say 2 and 3 degrees Fahrenheit, most of us, even for me, when I first heard that, I'm like, well, that's not a big deal. I mean, sometimes it's 30 degrees outside and sometimes it's 32. Why am I concerned? So to one extent, I want to raise alarm bells tonight because when heat and human body come together, it's not a great combo and we do get sick. And also it sets us up for failure for future generations. So yes, let's ring some alarm bells. And the way I'm going to describe why 2 degrees is a big deal is because NASA, NOAA, and the old EPA put together the average temperature of the climate on a bell curve. And that was the old bell curve that's in dotted lines. And we all know that a bell curve is a distribution way to show distribution frequency. So on the on looker's right, you're right, you can see that cold, extreme cold is on one end, and then towards me, extreme hot is on the other. What happens, as NOAA and NASA explained, is that when you shift this bell curve, so now the average temperature is 2 to 3 degrees higher, now you also shift the number of hot days, extreme hot days you have, and you have less extreme cold days. So in a world where, when you talk in medicine, I don't know, pH is a really big deal for clinicians. And when your pH is off even by a little bit, that's a big deal. So for me, I would tell like a student, I get this lecture, to a lot of classes, when the the planet's really sensitive and also has a pH. So when we throw that pH off or temperature by 2 degrees, a lot of different things start happening to us as humans. Here, we're going to start to get into the science of it. I always feel like this is a really big amount of information that I'm trying to cram into you and still fit in my enormous amount of solutions. I'm going to try tonight, and I know there's people listening on Zoom, so wherever you are on Zoom, wherever background you have, I'm going to try tonight to describe in a really easy way why 2 or 3 degrees in a changing climate is important for us as humans, why it's not about what we believe in, it's not about political affiliation, why it's about health. And before I go into that, I do want to quickly say that humans have been monitoring the temperature of the planet across the world. Like Europe started before America was even discovered. Well, not really, but Europe has also been on this, Asia, in 1880. So we can go back to 1880 and see the general temperature of the planet over time. Temperature has been a way that we survive as humans and how we plan agriculture and how we've evolved. So it has been very well documented. On a whole different level, let's go back to temperature. So when we're thinking about temperature in the human body, the National Weather Service, or on your Apple phone, puts out a temperature. That's your ambient temperature. That is simply taking a thermometer and putting it outside, putting it into water. You know when you like want to see if your meat's done? I always think about chicken. Chicken's like the really thing that you really want done. Well, that's your ambient temperature, whatever temperature that is. That has nothing to do with how we feel about that temperature, right? How our bodies are responding. So then there's called the wet bulb temperature, which if you actually look it up, the National Weather Service really toned this down. They take a thermometer, take a wet cloth and put it over the thermometer. And it just mimics us sweating because it helps to show how does our sweat evaporate in that temperature and humidity. The wet bulb global temperature is even more important. It takes into account our solar radiation, yes, humidity, but also wind speed. What's important about this is OSHA, the Occupational Safety Hazard Administration, now uses this as safety for workers. A lot of trainers are using it for professional athletes. This is the temperature that we know that you are safe in if you follow this. So I know a lot of universities are now using it for their athletes. Schools are starting to go to this. The wet bulb global temperature is the way, and it can shift even per city, per area, if you're like in a valley or shade. So it's more challenging to get, which is why it's not as easily accessible. But it is an important thing if we're going to be active in the outdoors. So I normally, like I said, I give this talk to a lot of students. And I'm almost frustrated tonight. There's so many people on Zoom because I can't quiz them or quiz people on Zoom, or I can't quiz you guys. But normally this is where I stop the class and I'm like, okay, everybody, what are the 4 ways the human body gets rid of heat? You know, and like, yeah. I won't do that to you tonight. But what I do want to say is there are 4 main ways the human body releases heat. And I don't know how well you guys can see this picture, but I think we can start with the most basic. Where is conduction? Bottom left, conduction. Conduction is really easy. Conduction is when we touch something that's cold. So we're hot, we get out of an ice pack. That's a really easy way that we can lose heat. Then we have convection. That's also a really nice way that we can cool our houses, right? Oh, sorry, guys. Convection, a fan. And that's a really nice way, or wind. That's why wind speed is important for how we can handle outside, because wind helps blow off our sweat. And then we have evaporation, which I just talked about, sweat. One of the best ways our body can release heat is we sweat it out. And then that sweat evaporates off. And then we have radiation, which I think is really interesting because our bodies actually emit infrared electromagnetic waves into an environment to get rid of heat. And this is the main way that our bodies get rid of heat. Up to 55 to 65% of our heat is released just through radiation. Why that is important right now is if you're in a nice cool room and you walk out into the hot sun, your body's immediately going to try to emit your heat. But the temperature around you is hotter. It's a useless system for your body to use. Your body's backup system will be sweating. And thankfully, we live in a dry Montana, so that usually works. But I'm already starting to spiral into why this can be bad for humans, right? Oh, I'm sorry. This is like, I try to make the slide all one, like a cool theme, but some of it's hard to read. So let me just read it for you guys. Environmental heat and heat production, how hot we are inside comes from both us and the environment, right? We all have different metabolisms. Children have much higher metabolism. I always joke, that's why my daughter's never cold. She's 6. You know, I'm like, oh, new thyroid, high metabolism. You know, they wear shorts in the middle of winter. They don't feel it. So metabolism, and as we get older, our metabolism slows, but internal heat, and then what's going on around us, right? Adjust. But then I also want to say, as individuals, I always joke how we're all little snowflakes, we're all very individual. We all have really different ways that we thermoregulate according to our body types. But our age is different. Children, because they have a higher metabolism and they don't feel cold as easy, but they might feel heat faster. What about our health status? I'm going to go really into health status in just 1 minute, but heart conditions are a really big piece of how we manage heat and if we are safe during heat. Hydration status is also a big deal. If you're like me, you really love coffee, you get the whole pot done before 10 a.m. and you start the second one. I'm probably going to have a problem this summer if I continue that habit. Hydration status is a big deal because hydration helps blood volume. And I'm going to explain this in the next slide, but blood volume is also important for circulating and releasing heat. And the last one is, I don't know if I mentioned medication use. And as we get older, more and more of us need medications. And there's certain medications that dehydrate us faster, but also certain medications, as the healthcare providers who are in this room and hearing this talk know, changes our heart rate, changes our blood pressure, changes the speed at which our hearts can actually adapt, or our bodies can adapt to vasoconstriction and vasodilation, which is just simply saying our veins relaxing or our veins tightening up. Medications will shift how that happens in our body. And then last of all, are we acclimated to it? If we live in the same temperature all the time, our bodies get time to quickly adjust to that. But if we go back and forth, like air conditioning to heat, or we have sudden extreme heat days, that's actually harder on the human body because we just haven't had time for our body to adjust to that. This is a really busy slide. So this is where I ask everybody that's in this talk, if this slide feels busy, I almost never put it on. But what I want you to take away from this slide is to think about the heart and heat. So if you just want to listen to my voice, don't even worry about the slide. It looks really busy. But what I do want to explain to you guys is this. So our bodies, and I know there's medical people in here, so just bear with me. I'm trying to explain to everybody so we're all at the same pace. Think about those little cups now you have where you can like expand the cup, the water bottles, or decrease the water bottles. So you have your water bottle and it's down to the smallest size, which I would say is similar to your veins being really tight, which we call vasoconstriction. And say you have your little cup of water in there and that's enough. Now you get really thirsty, so now you're gonna make that cup bigger. So you pull the cup open, but there's no more water in that cup. The same amount of water is in that cup, right? So that's what happens to your body when the veins decide to relax. You have the same amount of liquid or volume or blood, but now you've doubled the amount of space that it has to occupy. With heat, this is a big deal. The number one thing that your body does when it feels heat is those veins relax, and it doubles the amount of space that your blood now has to flow, which means that if you guys were students, I'd say, how does this happen? It relies on the heart, guys. Your heart has to work harder and faster. It's even interesting that sometimes even heat can actually signal our sinus node, which is the pacemaker of our heart, to speed up. Interesting enough, for every 1 degree of Celsius that the internal temperature of our body increases, our heart rate will pick up by 5 beats a minute, between 5 and 10 beats a minute. So if you have a cardiovascular disorder, if you have blood pressure issues and your veins can't, your heart is already working hard, heat is going to be really challenging for your body. You are going to have to know how to take a step back. And in Montana, we have a lot of agricultural workers, and I'm going to bring this up. We have a lot of construction workers, which we see with all the new building. We have a lot of road workers. We have a lot of students that are outside, like, you know, students when they're in school, they're outside, or we have athletes. And then all of us who just love the mountains, we are used to be able go and doing what we want when we want, activity-wise. We're not used to being restrained in our activities. But if heat is affecting our hearts and our ability to do this, or my experience from working in this job, I have learned if you're an agricultural worker and you have to get that field seeded, you have to harvest, you really don't have a choice, and you're pushing yourself in conditions that are hard on your heart. And this is where we come into pretty challenging events. And interesting enough, more adults die from cardiovascular events than nearly all other heat-related deaths combined. And it's just because heat affects the cardiovascular system because it makes the heart work so much harder. Okay, who does not have a dog like this? Because I have 2 of them. But now let's add exercise to the equation. So I was just talking about if you're a farmer, if you're a rancher, if you're a road worker, if you're a construction builder, if you're building some of these new homes, these new apartments, and now we're going into summer, what happens to us now? Dr. Merchant is a internal medicine doctor from Billings. He's wonderful. He works with our organization a lot. He's done some pretty heavy research on how heat affects the human body. And he found this great way to show us. And again, I know my graphs seem busy, so I'm going to point you to what to pay attention to so you don't get lost in the chaos. Pay attention to the first person sitting in a chair. At resting, your heart is moving around about 5 liters of blood a minute. But then you get up and you start to go for a little jog. Now your heart rate has to keep up and move 25 liters a minute, right? So now you're moving more blood faster because you're working out. Exercise increases our cardiac demand 5 times, around 5 times for the average person. So if heat is already increasing cardiac demand by 2 to 4 times, depending on who we are as people, right, and how our bodies function, then we start exercising in heat, and now we're getting ourselves into some dangerous zones. Dr. Merchant was the first educational talk I listened to where I learned how athletes actually die through this. And there's an athlete that was it 1998? Corey Stringer. I don't know if you guys know that story. Corey Stringer was a football player for the Vikings, and he was doing spring practice in Minnesota. The temperature was really high, but the wet global temp was extremely high. And he actually died from heat stroke because what he would do is he got nauseous, he'd throw up, he'd drink some Gatorade, he'd try to sleep it off, but he kept going back out into the heat with full pads on working, and no one was catching on how sick he was. Because it seems really obvious that we would be like, yeah, we're miserable, why don't we stop? But you guys, we don't. As a nurse in the emergency department, we keep pushing through. We are pretty resilient as humans, and if we want to finish that hike, or say we go for a run and we get to that turning around point, well, now we got to get home, and there's no way we're going to walk. I mean, are you kidding? Like, I only have like 30 minutes to get home, and I got my 10 other things to do, and I got to get to work, and da-da-da. We don't tend to slow down, or if your job relies on it. Sadly, our Hispanic workers at high risk for this because they often get paid for how much they get done in a day. And so they don't have that protection of OSHA. So now we're seeing a lot more just people getting sick, coming to the ER with heat-related illnesses from trying to work through it is my biggest example. This is just what we go through when we start experiencing heat problems. Heat cramps, usually exercise-induced. We feel cramping in our bodies. You know, usually it's almost like people are like, oh, I feel like I got lactic acid buildup. What's important with the heat cramps is our core temperature is remaining normal. We're feeling the first signs of like, it's hot out, my heart's working, maybe I'm a little dehydrated. Heat syncope is a fancy medical term for feeling lightheaded. It's usually used in sequence with fainting, as the healthcare people in here know. But right now you're like, okay, blood flow not getting everywhere fast enough to my brain. And you would think at this point, most people would be like, I'm gonna stop, I'm gonna take a break, I'm gonna sit down, drink some water, I'm gonna get out of the sun. And you might, but you're also like, you know, did I eat breakfast? My sugar, let me eat something. Let me drink a little water, but I'm gonna keep going because it's silly that I'm lightheaded. You know, especially if you're us where you're like, I wanna finish this hike or I wanna keep doing what I'm doing. Our core temperature is still normal here. You know, we feel a little lightheaded. We can tell that we got things going on. Remember I talked about how we made that compressible cup really big now? We're vasodilated, or our vessels are really relaxed at this point. Now we're getting into heat exhaustion. And I think it's easy to confuse heat exhaustion with just being tired from physical activity. But it's really heat exhaustion, guys. Like, you can't figure out why you're tired when you did like half the amount of physical activity you're used to. That's heat exhaustion. You're probably feeling a little weak, maybe some dizziness, maybe some nausea. In heat exhaustion, your core temp is starting to change just a little bit. It's not going up a lot. Here, like I always do, like the National Health Institute or the Lancet Commission report research on how to have these definitions so they're clinical. Temperature around 101, 104. But at this point, when your internal temperature starts rising a little, you got to start cooling off. Like right now, you got to cool off. You got to stop what you're doing. You got to sit in the shade and you got to get your temperature down. It is not just from your exercise. Yes, it's from the heat. Now we're getting into what we call heat injury. Heat injury is now where your body's no longer able to keep up with heat and it's going to start compensating. Heat injury is a medical emergency. If you're at that family reunion and you see somebody who is starting to mentally just seem like they're a little off, like they haven't drank any alcohol, but they may appear like they've drank alcohol, they seem extra sleepy. If you feel their pulse, of course, it's going to be fast because your heart's working really hard, right? But they're going to feel really lightheaded. Other signs is, the hard thing with this is the signs are mostly the same as heat exhaustion. But you've just let heat exhaustion get to a point where now your core temp is now 104 and above. And time is brain here. So the first thing that is not going to get blood flow and you're going to start losing is your mind, is your brain. You got to cool. What I give when I talk to medical students of any sort, whether nursing, EMS, anything, is at this point it's rapid cooling even before you try to get someone to the hospital. So if you see this event in a group of your friends, you're out camping, you're doing a hut trip, whatever you're doing, a biking trip, don't try to like get them to a hospital right away. Dump that cooler over top of them, whatever gross water that is, get it on top of them. You got some cold Gatorade in your Camelback, you dump that on them. You get their feet in something cool and you cool off their body. You get their clothes off. You need to cool them. Transporting them could prolong their temperature staying up. They have got to get cool until they shiver. And they're going to shiver because the sensory for their heat is off, right? Their thermoregulation is off. Shivering doesn't mean now they need a blanket. It means you're actually getting their temperature down. They've been so high, now you're getting it down. By the time you get to heat stroke, people are gonna become unconscious. Core temperature is now above 104, maybe 108, and this is where you see death. Whew. We're gonna see family reunions a little differently now, huh? And honestly, it's not like something that we've had to worry about in the past, and that's why I'm bringing it up now. If we shift that bell curve, now we're just more on the right, we get more extreme heat days. It's not going to be consistent, but we're going to have those extreme heat days where we still have the plans to do something fun. And I'm telling you guys about the health things because you got to stay safe, but you also want your friends to stay safe. You want the people that you love to stay safe, so you can watch out for each other as well. Sadly, mostly with any form of consistent heat or temperature rising, there also comes drought. I looked this up. Why? Like, why? But because drought and heat have this vicious reinforcing cyclical relationship, which I find really interesting, that I'm learning about health, but I'm also learning about weather. Turns out that slow moving, high pressure systems will trap heat at the ground level. And then they create an intense heat wave because the heat gets trapped and they prevent cloud formation. And we absolutely need cloud formation to have any precipitation. So it's a cyclical event when you have extreme heat events, and it just feeds into one another. And it's even more if you're like, well, why is it a high pressure system, not low pressure system? It's a bigger story I learned because I actually looked into it. The weather patterns start to cap over the heat, and the heat actually gets trapped. So with heat comes drought. And I like the way National Geographic says it, because who doesn't like a good National Geographic? They are, but they talk about, because they're national, right? They've been seeing drought in other countries and not just ours for years, you know? But drought's really hard. You can't say, well, you have this condition because of the drought. It's not a fast acting thing. Instead, it's really slow. It's hard to pinpoint just when the disaster happened, right? It's long lasting impacts. What did they say? Natural disasters destroy communities. Drought destroys civilizations, right? It's an economic downfall is what happens with drought. And as you're going to see here, across the United States, we are feeling drought, but this talks about the cost of it. Why does drought cost so much money? And of course, we're all like, well, obviously, like, but really, why does it? Because our agriculture and our ranchers and our farmers first go out of business. Food prices spike, not just in Montana, but everywhere. Getting food is more challenging if you have to get all your food from another country. But sadly, a warming planet is international and global, so all other countries are also struggling with food and growing food. So now food prices are just gonna go up in general. But the ranchers and farmers that buy into the economics of the local businesses to buy their seeds, to buy their farm equipment, they're gonna try to survive off less, right? So they're not gonna purchase as much things, as many products. Or if you're spending more money on food, you're not gonna purchase many products. So now you see local economies start to struggle because people just don't have that money because the money is going elsewhere. Water shortages also increase the cost of water, obviously, but do we really think about that? I like to remind people about what we've struggled with in Montana, how Northwest Energy spiked its rates 36% in like the last couple years, and we're already worried about housing prices. Well, with drought, you don't have hydroelectric power anymore. The rivers are drying up, right? So that's not a way of power that we can use. So we're also going to struggle over just getting water, and we're going to struggle over electricity because our power grid is going to be more burdened as we use more electricity to try to cool off. And interesting enough, drought does reduce tax revenue by suppressing economic activity. And then we all know about the wildfires. I don't want to go into all these suppressive facts too much, but I want you guys to know it's there, right? It's really expensive. What else I want you to know is that the drought monitor, so there's a national drought monitor and then there's a Montana drought monitor. They do amazing work. I've read all their stuff just for all this work in climate and health and trying to figure out the connection. Well, I have to learn a lot to learn when you have to learn about drought. But if you look at Montana, this is from this month on the 3rd. There's not a single place in Montana. Well, maybe there's a little, can you guys see a little white dot there somewhere? Definitely not around here. That's not in drought, right? We're in drought. It's okay to admit it because once we talk about it and admit it, we can be like, what can we do about it? I am not the person that's gonna jump around and say, we're not in drought, it's gonna be okay. I'm like, well, you guys, let's find out some solutions. Let's fix it. Doesn't mean we don't have hope. It just means we gotta do something, fix it. So let's talk about it and fix it. Okay. The biggest part that you guys know is snow drought. We all saw the snow. Annie talked about in the beginning. I'm gonna talk to that for a certain extent. I'm gonna go straight into Gallatin Valley right now. Again, my expertise are in nursing specifically. I'm really good at giving medication, guys. I'm awesome at helping you swallow pills. So bear with me when I try to describe to you what I know about water in Montana, okay? Specifically Gallatin Valley. And forgive me, like, my knowledge of this is really brief, but remember, if you ever need me as a nurse, I got you for the pills and the Band-Aids. I do know that a lot of our water comes from the Gallatin Valley aquifer, which is like a very shallow aquifer. Everybody that lives out on, what is it? Is it like by Cottonwood, East Valley? There's one more place that's out there. You guys might know, is it back over by like Baxter? They get all their water from the Gallatin Valley aquifer, which is actually pretty shallow. Like it's like 30 feet shallow is what I'm saying. And I think that's important because we think about rainfall. Like, well, maybe we could just replenish that with rainfall. 80% of those of us that live in town, we get our waters, we all know, from Sourdough Canyon. We all talk about that and, clean up your dog poop. Yes, please. But also Highlight, reservoir. And so out of curiosity, and this is Google again, I'm better at pills. I did the Google thing. How much does the Sourdough reservoir, our Sourdough aquifer and the Highlight reservoir and Gallatin Valley Florida aquifer rely on snowpack for replenishment? And the response was, it is the lifeblood of the aquifers. Because we've always used the Gallatin Valley Range as a natural water tower to replenish our water. Why doesn't rain work as well? One, I think is interesting is rain is not as clean. If we're getting our water from the mountains, it doesn't go through urban areas and agriculture and pick up those chemicals. Two, it's got to be a slow, steady rain to actually infiltrate and sit, which is why I'm always like, please support your marshes. Because when water can sit for long periods of time, it can get deep. And our agriculture workers that are supporting our food systems, their aquifers are around 400 feet. Their aquifers can take years to replenish from snowpack because it needs such a slow absorption. That's our food source. And that's not just our food, that's not just Montana, that's food sources across US, right? I'm trying to remind us, like, this is affecting all of us. Yes, we want the alarm bells to ring. Support your marshes. That's a great way that we can also get water infiltrating our aqua system. An interesting thing about drought too is when the river or the how do they call, like the power going into our main city. There's some things I have to write down just so I say it better, guys. And let me say this a little bit better. Here it is. When it's treatment plant, so when stagnant water encourages algae growth, yes. But when low flow of water happens, treatment plants get this low flow of water, they actually have to create more disinfectant because there's more just bacteria, germs, and muck off it. And the problem with the rain is rain picks up muck as it enters our water. So you're also getting more just chemicals in your water to make your water safe, which is another reason we got to clean up our dog poop. Right, and just low level waters just increase toxicity of it all, right? If your aquifer is low, you don't get as fresh, it's not diluted. And I think that's the easiest way to say it, even though that took me a lot of concentration to say. Another really fascinating thing about drought is, let's see here. Well, maybe I'll stop here for 1 second. I'm gonna quickly go over, maybe let's quickly go over each one of these right now. Dust is a really big problem for drought. And again, I'm just telling you what you guys can share with your friends, and you're like, let's take action. And they're like, I don't have the time. Well, you gotta take action because, and then it's just more meaningful for people to make change. That's the only reason I'm going over problems. But dust storms actually hold a lot of spores of mold and bacteria. We see a lot of this in, or public health sees a lot of this in Montana. I can't say that doctors specifically think about this, but there's something called organic toxic lung syndrome, and it's overexposure to dust. And it causes a flu-like symptoms for about a week, and you do recover. There's another symptom called farmer's lung, and that's actually an allergic response that develops slowly over continuous exposure to dust. And it can cause long-term scarring of the lungs. And the only real way to keep safe from that is, yes, antihistamines can help because it's kind of like it's like allergic reaction is why it gets worse over time. But to prevent scarring of your lungs, you have to stay away from the source. But if you're someone that works in dust all day, that's like an impossible thing to ask of somebody. That's their livelihood. Wildfires are becoming urban fires. It's a problem because they're spreading more kindling. No matter what forest management we have, if you have too much kindling, it's just more susceptible, including your houses. We talked about water quality. Vector habitat is what I was about to go into because I think vector habitat's really interesting with drought because you would think that mosquitoes just don't have places to lay eggs. But instead, when rivers break up, they create little pools. But another thing I learned is that fish don't survive well in warm water or shallow water. So you don't have the predators for the vectors. So you actually get more vectors because the predators for these vectors are dying off. I already talked about this. We don't need to go into more of that. I just talked about this. It's words. If you guys want these slides at all, just know I will always give them. But I want to go into this for a hot minute because this is a really big deal in Montana. I feel like, there's certain cities, like big cities like Missoula and Bozeman, we don't feel the agricultural influence as much as other towns do. But all we have to do is drive to Livingston, Whitehall, Manhattan, Belgrade, and our farmers and ranchers are there. And they're going through some really tough stuff right now, guys. And this started last year where there started being reports of an enormous amount of farmers and ranchers committing suicide. The depression rates, but also because there's a stigma behind antidepressants. If you own your own ranch, you got to run it. You got to be capable. You got to be tough. You got to be strong. You don't just give in. It's just like, but they're losing third, fourth generation farms and ranches. They're now relying on people that know nothing about ranching and farming to buy them out. And then take their land and build it into something else. They're losing the way of life and what they've always known. They feel like maybe they're the ones to blame, but really, guys, it's our entire, all of us are to blame, right? Not to blame, I don't want to put blame on anybody, but just awareness, like we're all in it. But I want to remind us that the people that do some of the hardest work and provide us the basic things that we need in life, such as food, and we all like it to go to that restaurant and order a local Montana beef. That makes us like it's a good connection to feel that. They'll support them. They're going through a really, really hard time right now, and mental health is completely in the toilet for our ranchers and farmers. Ooh, I went through that too fast. This is the part where I'm supposed to tell you to close your eyes for 1 second. If you're on Zoom, I know you're not gonna listen to me, but just try. Just wanna take a breath here, because this is at the point where you feel like you just listened to, CNN for an hour or whatever news station you listen to, BCC, and you're feeling pretty frustrated with the state of the world. I asked you to close your eyes because I want to tell you one thing, and I want you to truly, truly believe me. You are not powerless. This is not out of your control. I hope you believe me, even if your eyes are closed. And this is why I come to here. So the whole point of this evening is to tell you guys, hey, we got a problem. Let's talk about the problem, because I want to do this. Will you support me to do this? Can you help me do this? Can we do this as a community? Can we talk about it? So it's not like this weird, climate change is a weird conversation right now, guys. It freaks people out. It shows political sides. I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about, we got some heat, we got some drought with our ranchers and farmers, and they're struggling. And we have a lot of homes in Montana that don't have air conditioning. We have to take care of our children and our outdoor workers. And I'm also here to talk about, very bipartisan, is that pollution affects all of us. Pollution is pollution, guys. And so can we talk about it, even if we don't vote for the same people? Can we have these conversations so it's normal? Because until we all take care of one another, I do not believe that it's me against you, you against them. I truly, truly believe, and you guys, obviously you're here tonight, you care, you guys are part of this community. I'm trying to say this because it's a deep belief, and I know all you guys would resonate with me. It's an us. We are an us. We all have our individual problems, but when we come to the table to solve problems, we can do it as an us. I truly believe we can do it as us. So if we talk about it, maybe we can include us in it and find ways that we can all share the importance of it. And it says be a local advocate and only choose leaders that protect climate. Well, I probably should have worded that differently to be a little more bipartisan. How about protect your health? But because my world is about, if the environment is over polluted, I breathe in that pollution. If the environment's too hot, I struggle with the heat. So for me, climate to me is my outdoor, right? Environmental health is a whole public health sector. So you got to bear with me with some of my terminology. I don't know how to move from that because I just know what happens to the outside also happens to our inside. So bear with me. But we want leaders that get those connections, right? Like people are like, oh, it's connected. It's connected. What can we do to make our town better? And not just legislative leaders. What about leaders in the biggest organizations in Bozeman? Can we ask our hospital to be sustainable? What's the university doing to be sustainable? I think they're doing some good stuff. I don't know. Can we ask them? Any big organization or company that you use a lot, maybe ask the question, what's your sustainability philosophy? Can I ask you to help us so we don't get sick? And then if you have the opportunity to vote for people that believe in health and the connection and believe in all the other stuff you believe in, try to choose them. You always have to stick with that. But just remember, it's an us problem. So I'm just asking us to choose people, or if you guys become leaders, just what can we do, even as if you become leaders, if you're choosing leaders, that protects the entire community. And I always say, support your local farmers. It's going to be a little more expensive, but still support them. If you buy one thing a week that's from a local farm, you just have really helped those guys get through the rough drought. They can't help it. They're not pocketing the extra cash, if that makes sense. I know this firsthand. I think you guys all know this firsthand. Let's just support them to keep that going, because we know that having local food in Montana is so good for our health on so many levels. Also want you to know how to stay safe, which is what we're going to go into in a second. And then public health surveillance is really important. Sadly, public health is more government-based, and we do need people that support public health. And we need people that are willing to put money into supporting surveillance systems so we can see where the problems, where we should put our money to solve these problems and how it's affordable in ways. You can't fix a problem if you don't have the data. And so we just really need the public health data out there. Big picture solutions, which I already just kind of talked about. Talking about it, this is some cool roadmaps. This is from 2023. Sadly, NOAA will no longer track the cost of climate crisis-fueled weather disasters. And the reason we talk about that is when you think about what causes most extreme weather events or disasters, it's usually some form of pollution. And so we call pollution a climate-related disaster because pollution is what has caused our climate to heat up, right? There's too much pollution in the air. We're not releasing the heat. So it's very pollution-based. But what is so cool is the information's already out. We got great information on it. These pamphlets you can get online. I think you just ordered them. I don't know if there's even a cost. I know you can download this one for completely free. This is incredible, done by NOAA. We had our organization worked with NOAA for a little while, and they were brilliant because they follow weather patterns. And for them, it is just numbers, and it's around the world numbers. And they are great with drought, and they have great ideas and solutions. So having a pamphlet like this just on your dining room table, if you don't want to talk about it, maybe in the bathroom so that like everyone has to pee, they're like, oh, interesting. Just get that going, get the conversation going. Have a trivia night over it. It's just good information that we have out there. This is another great one, drought and health. How do we talk to each other about it? Yes, this might be specifically about healthcare professionals, but if you're also trying to convince your friend that they might be getting sick because it's hot outside, you can pull out some data really quickly off here, and this is free to download. If you're like, I know this is true. We all take CPR classes. We can all read a drought book, in my opinion, and help us do better and work together. Mental health resources. I know this is a lot of info. I'm going to give my email at the end. I have a handout of a way to get a hold of me. You can sign up. But I can get these slides to you guys. And I think this is recorded, so you can just always pause the recording. Mental health stuff for farmers and ranchers, if you have anyone in your life that you know that you could support, or any way just to keep this publicized, just keep it going so more people can have access to this. The more people I show it to, my hope is the more people have access to mental health resources if drought's causing a hard time in their life. This is kind of fun because there's a couple of organizations, including Montana Health Professionals, that do quick, actionable things. So some of us don't want to be involved at all in politics. That is okay. Some of us, if a policy comes up and a bill is about to be voted on, it's real, how do you find that bill? How do you know who to write to? Wait, do I even have time to write to? I'm not calling in. Like, these are all the thoughts that go through my head, I'm like, I'm not going to call that office and leave a net. What am I going to say? So I find these guys really helpful. And some of these guys are local. I keep doing this. This is what happens. You guys give me when I get a pointer all to myself. We're going the wrong direction. Oh, okay. So the first one's my organization because I am so sorry, guys. I don't even know what I'm doing. I don't know how to get out of that. I'm sorry, but I will talk about my organization. We do quick actions. So there's actually this here. I'll find some pens in a minute. I'm going to put these handouts out, and you can sign up just to get more information on our organization. And we do fun things where every month we'll send out here's an actionable event. One of them was go buy local food. Another one of them is this month we're here's some free education. Go sign up for it and get some free education. But we also do things through a platform called Voters Voice. And this is where policies that are in the making or in the changing, we will do the research for you. And if you like, you can sign petitions, and it takes a minute on your phone. You can be like, yeah, add my name to that petition. Sounds great. I want clean water. I feel like, I want my child to not have vehicle emissions in front of her school. Little policies like that will come up. If you can find out about them and you just quickly sign your name. There's even letters, and we'll do a pre-write letter for you. So you're like, I'll just change the wording a little, make it personal. Wow, cool. I just wrote my legislation in 5 minutes. Why would that? The reason that is important is legislation wants votes, and they don't know what you want until you tell them. If they get things in writing about what we care about as Montanans, they're going to do that because they want reelected and they want votes. But they don't know it, guys, if we don't tell them. They are looking at the snowfall. Yes, I'm sure they have their thoughts, but that's not, it's us telling them what we want that will get them to make those decisions. And hopefully we're like, great, we like you, we'll vote for you again. But that's the reason that's so important. So our organization's a great one. Nina is also, I'm just gonna grab a pen and pass this around if anyone wants to sign up. Nina is more on eastern side of Bozeman. But it's a way, but you know, Bozeman's changing and there might be other, I'm gonna stress you out tonight, aren't I? I have no idea what I just did again. But Nina's a great one because there's other neighborhood groups around Bozeman that you can join. And then you guys get a voice just right within your neighborhood, which is awesome. You get a say in what's happening a couple blocks down from you. I am really sorry. There's a few more. I will figure out how to get there. If anyone feels like signing up, we can pass this around now. It's just to get our emails if you want more information. It was a good time. I had Patagonia Action Works up here. Oh, I had Engage Bozeman. I wonder if did that make it change? I did not make it change. Let's go back. I'll just do this for you guys. Thank you. Engage Bozeman is through the city of Bozeman. And I think that's important because they just recently put out a survey on thoughts about water and what you want for your water rights and what you care about for water. Because water is becoming political because it's becoming a sacred resource. And you might have heard of like Lime Canyon. It's a place that Bozeman City can take water during drought. But the problem is now it's like you take from one part of the city and give to the other part of the city. So you get a say through Engage Bozeman on how this stuff happens. Sadly, I was going to bring up the website to how you can put in the survey for water, but it ended on March 22nd. It's only a couple of days ago, which is sad. But keep in touch with Engage Bozeman because they're always putting out polls, ideas, and they want your opinion. And even if it doesn't work out for you, at least you had your opinion heard, right? It's a way. And then last one I did was Patagonia Action Works, which we all like Patagonia. Patagucci is what we used to call it when we were in college. But they actually have a great platform. You put in your zip code and what you care about, and they pull up organizations you can support or any actions that those organizations are doing at that moment in time, and you can have your voice heard, whether it's petitions, whether it's activities like tonight. So Patagonia Action Works is a nice, fun one to go through. And then you could always go to Patagonia Worn Wear, which is where I get my used jackets from. More drought ideas. I think some of this is just really repetitive, but support wetlands and ecology is a bigger deal than I think we realize. Once we realize it's our drinking water and that's how we replenish aquifers, I think it becomes more important and more relevant. Pay attention to your dust exposure. One thing that simple things you can do is you kind of treat dust like you would treat wildfire smoke. There is a make your own personal HEPA filter. You can take a box fan and some duct tape and you put a furnace filter onto the back of that box fan. And that will create a HEPA filter for your home that is much more affordable than a new HEPA filter. You can keep a clean air filter in one of your rooms. When it's really dry out, if you live around dust, important things to consider are don't run the vacuum that day, cook outside. A lot of our stoves are gas powered and that gas just pollutes our air. And so we want to do something that's that's not on the stovetop. Be aware of what other kind of things you're putting in your house. Like if you use incense or candles and things like that, understand that is particulate matter that you are adding to the toxicity in your air. Homes with tight envelopes tend to do better. The city of Bozeman had a really cool indoor health activity here at the library, and they were explaining that, if your house vents a lot of air, which sadly ours does. I mean, it's kind of depressing. I don't even know where to start with it. But when the air comes through, it's picking up all that particulate matter from all the building as well. Like the insulation and all that is coming into your house. So tight envelopes, if there's a way to tighten the envelope by your house, you actually can keep it cooler and safer to breathe. We're gonna go into how to keep homes cool in a minute here. But on heat too, if you are an active person or you have a job, that requires you to be in a heat area. Am I almost out of time, guys? These heat systems are online. The CDC does one, the National Heat Service does one, and it does take into wet bulb temperature, not the global wet bulb. Sadly, getting humidity, wind speed, and everything for specific areas is a little challenging, but there might be ways to access that through OSHA. More ideas on water. Water's getting expensive, and we all know who gets hit the hardest, right? The people who have the lowest income gets hit the hardest. So I just think above all that I'm not saying stop using water. You don't have to be crazy about water, but maybe conscientious about not overusing water. You know, I think that we've always taken it for granted, and it's easy to not worry about it. So I would say the first step is just being conscientious of not using more than you need. Use it, use what you need, but don't overuse it, because someone else really needs that as well, because we're sharing it. That's all I want to say about that. But I don't know if this federal program is still around. It was 6 months ago. It's called the Weatherization Assistance Program that helps water saving. So they help you afford water saving devices in your home, which can be really helpful, like taps and things like that. You know, simple things like got an old water bottle, you don't want to drink the rest of it out, just water your plant. Like little things about it's just more about, can we be more conscientious and not wasteful at all? I talked a lot about heat stroke treatment. Again, this was more for my students. I talked about get cold immediately for heat. I do want to bring up air conditioners, because you guys, they work for moments, but man, they are like the relationship between heat and drought. Heat and drought have that horrible vicious cycle. So do air conditioners and heat. Air conditioners overload the power grid really quickly. They consume a ton of water to keep places cool. And in Montana, we have to remember that we run 45% of our electricity off of coal. So when we plug into that AC, we're polluting our air, which increases the temperature of our state, because pollution just increases temperature, right? So the thing about ACs I want to talk about is, I know that I have a home that wasn't built with one, and I think a lot of homes in Montana aren't. So that's another reason it's important to discuss in Montana. If you have one, I think it's important to be as conscientious about that as you are about water. Maybe the thing with heat, and the most risky thing with heat, is when your body doesn't get a chance to cool off at all in a 24-hour period. So most cardiovascular events actually happen when it's hot all day and it's hot all night and you don't get any ability to cool. So for an air conditioner, actually the best time to probably use it, if you don't want to contribute to the problem getting worse and then needing more and more air conditioning until the grid breaks, is using it at night. First off, you don't need it as much, right? You can run it at a lower rate. But second, if you don't cool off at night, your health is just more at risk. Night's the most important time. During the day, you can find shade, you can find cool areas, you can hydrate. If you're at work, your building might have it, right? You don't need to run it in a house that you're not at, correct? But at night, you can open up your curtains. We always say lower the curtains in the morning just to block the heat from coming in, open them at night, let the cool air come in, or you can use air conditioning at night. Air conditioning is a tough one. In states like Texas, where heat deaths are a massive problem right now, air conditionings are also a massive problem, but so is their electrical system. They're having a really hard time providing enough, Debbie's from Texas, enough electricity for everybody. The power grid just gets really weak, especially when you don't have hydroelectric power to help overcompensate some of that. So just the thing about ACs, I'm not saying don't use them. I have a little girl, when she's a baby, we definitely use, you can put one in one room. Just be conscientious of how you're doing it, and just try not to be wasteful with it is all I'm trying to say. Obviously, drink water, helps that volume in your body. Give your body a few days to get used. If it's an extreme weather day, your body hasn't experienced that heat, Andy, I'm so close to being done. Nope, okay, we're gonna go through this slide. Give your body time, loose clothing, go to our website. We have all these resources on our website. If you guys wanna sign up. We do a lot of advocacy, we offer workshops. We have free toolkits where you're like, I wanna learn more about heat. You can download all that stuff for free. And then last is thank you. And it's juliamryder@gmail.com. And that is our organization website. You guys can text, email me. I can get you slides, get you information. Hopefully that was a little informative.
Thank you, Julia.
Yeah.
So much great information. Now is our question and answer. So I'm going to hand over the microphone to Terry here. And so just raise your hand if you have a question in the audience. And
Questions? Everybody knows all the answers. Oh, yay. Okay.
Hi, Puzzle.
Do you know if we're able to see what the level of water is in our aquifer?
I don't
do
know
have
that.
that
That's a
system?
great question. I
Okay.
don't know.
And then can I ask you about recycling?
Yes, please ask me about
You-
recycling. Yes.
Sort of related?
Yeah, no, it's
Um,
great. It's all
You
related.
mentioned before that you have a recycler that takes glass.
J&K takes glass. I think Gone Green does as well.
And do you know what they do with it?
Yes. So I actually called Four Corners Recycling and I said, how come J&K can pick, well, I called Kevin first, poor Kevin. He's like, oh, who's this lady? It's like, how come you can pick up my glass when there's no glass recycling in Bozeman? He's like, well, actually there is. Here's the number to Four Corners Recycling. So I went and I called them and they said, we do. And we had this conversation right before with you. Yeah, we had this right before. Glass is just really expensive to ship. And the highest cost of recycling is the shipping cost. So glass is expensive to ship. So the city doesn't want to pay for that.
Okay.
But it's really, if you think about expense in a big picture, how much is it to drive your glass and drop it off at Four Corners? It's like 10 pounds is like $4 or something, you know? But what I do to make it really easy for everybody, and please forgive me, local recyclers, if I'm overwhelming you with business, but J&K and Gone Green will pick it up. Very, very affordable curbside recycling to pick up. And they pick up glass because they're driving out to Four Corners anyways. And so the cost of them getting your recycling, it probably is the same cost you drive if you drove it yourself. But glass is the most important thing to recycle. It never breaks down. It is made from sand, but that sand is from Asia. It is not from here. It will not break down in the landfill, especially because there's no oxygen in our landfill. That glass will be there until the end of time. But also glass is really good for us to use. And it's so easy to recycle because you just melt it, molds into new things. It's not toxic. It is great. But don't use it if you're not going to that's a really powerful statement to make, but I was like, please just be attempting to recycle it because it's such a great product, but it still takes a lot of mining to make. There's still environmental integration made, done with that, yes.
Any other questions? Oh, online. All right.
Yeah, one question. You mentioned hydration as being very important. Could you talk a little about electrolytes?
Yes, so electrolytes are important. I think there was a phase where everyone was like scared of drinking too much water because you can get, the water sickness, where you're like really low electrolytes. Electrolytes are important. They must be balanced with the right amount of hydration because if you don't have the fluid to circulate them through your body, you're still going to be dehydrated. If you had a choice between, in the medical field, and I know Pezel could speak to this too, and anyone else that works in medicine like Nyla, but like, if you had a choice between just drinking water or taking a salt tab, drink the water, not the salt tab. That's going to actually help you more. If you can take them together, great, but water is really helpful.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Marcia points out that mature trees offer a lot of benefits for cooling, windbreaks, and other health benefits. Unfortunately, trees are often cut down to accommodate housing and commercial building. Has your group thought about advocating for protection of urban forests?
That's a great question because I deeply believe in trees. Trees are such a valuable part of our planet. Sadly, we just are a small organization and our hands are really full right now. We have discussed how we can incorporate trees into our work. Right now, just because we're very focused on medicine, it's not where our attention is. But we really advocate, if that's a place that people are passionate about, that please work on that because trees are, yes, I couldn't agree more. And hopefully one day that there'd be a way to incorporate that, but just working with health and mostly medicine stuff, it's just another avenue that we don't have the capacity for right now.
Any others? Online?
We have one participant online who has their hand raised. If they could type their question into the Q&A box, we'll be able to see it. Thank you.
All right, we have a question here, so we'll take that one first and then that next. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for the talk. I was just curious if there's anything that like you've learned about when it comes to like wind and drought/heat, whether that's actually beneficial or if it can actually end up causing more problems?
I
Just
mean,
curious.
yes, you're thinking along the right lines. You must have like picked up on the spores. Yeah, wind's a bad problem. So if you have wind and dust, you're spreading. So spores and bacteria will technically hibernate in dust. And then the wind comes along and it blows those particles around, and then we get to breathe in the particles. So one thing I haven't had time to discuss was like how we're seeing more valley fever in Montana and other bacteria and fungus that's getting into our lungs from wind blowing dust around. Yep. Yeah.
Online, did they finish?
None right now.
Not yet.
Okay.
Oh, all right, another question for Anne.
Thanks, Julia, for all this great information. But I just was wondering if you would want to spend a minute or two talking about wildfires and PM 2.5
Yes.
and some of the health effects of why you should protect yourself from breathing some of that wildfire smoke.
Definitely, because it's on everyone's mind, because it might be a bad wildfire season. So PM 2.5, there's different particulate matters, what PM stands for, and there's different sizes. Turns out PM 2.5 is smaller than our red blood cells. So I think many of you guys might already know this, so forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but PM 2.5, because it is smaller than our red blood cells, it does get into everywhere in our body, including the blood-brain barrier and including in the fetus when women are pregnant. So the problem with wildfire smoke is children specifically have developing lungs. We talked about how they have a higher metabolism and they're obligate oral mouth breathers, so they're taking in more air per minute than we are as adults. So they're taking in this air with this particle that I compare it to cigarette smoke, right? There's not much difference between the toxins in like a wildfire smoke than there is in like a nicotine or cigarette smoke. And they're breathing that into their developing lungs. So they're just so much more likely to have chronic lung issues and asthma as they grow up. Protecting yourself, again, it's tough because often wildfires come in the middle of summer when you're hot. And the mental health of being stuck in a house is really hard. But on your phones, on every phone, there's the air quality, and you can monitor the air quality and choose. And choosing, if you can't afford a HEPA filter, but you can just do one of those box fan filters, choosing a clean room in the house that you spend most of your day, and even just wearing masks are helpful. It's not crazy. I mean, at least got that out of COVID. Finding areas like public libraries that have good HVAC systems are also really helpful for circulating air and helping clean air get to you. So bringing your child there and making sure the school has a clean HVAC system, and making sure they're not exposed to other particulate matter around them, like diesel fuel, like idling vehicles, other sorts of things like that. Is that enough? I'm so sorry. I'm trying not to take too much time. Yeah.
Another question.
Oh, I just was wondering how widespread your organization is in Montana. Is it centered in Bozeman and Billings, or is it?
That's a great, yeah, thanks for asking, Sally. It's actually we are great because we have people on our board that are from every phase of like every area of Montana, north, south, east, and west. And it's based out of, and Lori and Rob Bryan, who are physicians, doctors, one's a pediatrician, one's an internal medicine doctor. They're based out of Red Lodge, and they're the ones that started the program. And so I get to work here and I get to spread it here because I'm here, but we always are like connecting to people like, hey, can you do this talk? Or hey, can you help us over here? And so it's kind of nice and we work a lot with the tribal health too, which is really eye-opening to how lucky we are here in Bozeman.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do we have time? We do have time for one more question. Is there anyone in here and anybody?
Good.
Oh, Carol?
So we got a mini split and thinking if there gets to be lots of wildfires, that would be a really good solution to keep our house cool and
Yeah.
breathe.
Like have it
better in.
downstairs to go to? Yep.
Say it again.
Like have it downstairs to go to with the mini split, like you have like a
It's on the
lower area that'd be
first
cooler.
floor and there's a couple upstairs.
Yeah. Yeah, as long as it's a tight envelope and you're keeping particulate matter out from the external, and then you're not adding particulate matter inside yourself,
Yeah.
then you should be pretty good.
The main system is on the outside of the house, but
Yeah. I mean, the challenge is, right, like how do you stay cool with a tight envelope when this wildfire season. I think that is a challenge, and we play with it too, because it's not like we can all afford fancy gadgets.
Right.
But what we can do is just be conscientious of, okay, we're closing the windows. We're not going to exercise a lot because we're not going to inhale more of that air. We're going to prevent ourselves from adding to the particulate matter. But yeah, there's no quick, easy answer. But yes, you're trying, and I love that you're aware of that. And you guys share more ideas. We need community effort on that for sure.
Okay, I think we've run out
Okay,
of time. We have
okay.
to be out of the
Thank you guys for
library
that.
by 8 p.m. So
Yeah, great. Okay.
we need
Yes, of
to
course.
wrap up. But if we can just thank
Oh, yeah.
Julia with a
Thank you
round
guys
of
for being here
applause one more
tonight, too.
time. It was really great. Thank you, Julia. Whoops, here we go. Okay, I just have to give a little plug for some of our next events in case you're interested. Our next talk is online only. It's with the Smithsonian, actually, and it's called Lost Connections, Uncovering the Impacts of Nearly Lost Keystone Species on Grassland Ecosystem Health. It's a lot of words there, but it should be really interesting. It's with Andy Boyce-Perot. He's an avian ecologist with the Smithsonian. It is Wednesday, April 8th at 6:30 Mountain Time and on Zoom only. So you can register to get that link by going to our website at GallatinValleyEarthDay.org. We're also very excited to be teaming up with the Bozeman Doc Series again on April 23rd, Thursday, April 23rd. We'll be showing an Earth Day film, which is about polar bears. It's called Nuisance Bear, and it was recently the winner of the Grand Jury Prize at the Sundance Film Festival. And Jason, who runs the doc series, says it's a super great film. So you might want to, if you're in Bozeman, come there. There's free food at 6 p.m. at the Emerson, and there's a silent auction, and then the film starts at 7. So it's a fun evening. And then once again, please join us if you can for the Gallatin Valley Earth Day Festival. It's from 10 to 2 at the fairgrounds. It really is something for everyone there. If you have kids or grandkids, we have a ton of great kids events, including an Earth Day magic show at 10 a.m. Random Acts of Silliness, which everyone knows about, is doing an interactive story time. During the festival. We have all sorts of games for the kids. We have a petting zoo and face painting for the grownups. We have 3 great talks. There's one on composting at 11. The City of Bozeman's going to help you save water, which we were talking about. So come to the WaterWise workshop at noon. And then everyone loves the live raptor presentation, which is at 1. And plus we have over 40 exhibits with covering a wide range of topics that you can enjoy. You can also come pick up your cleanup kit for the City of Bozeman's Cleanup Week. So much going on. Oh, we have live music, and we have also a local foods, speaking about eating locally, it's a really fun pop-up court with local foods, and this year we are also featuring food for the kids so that the kids can stay longer and do more. So anyway, I encourage you to come out and have fun at 9 a.m. Oh, I'm sorry, we're going on. There's so much, but we also at 9 a.m. to noon is the local farmers market. You can buy local produce at the Earth Day Festival there. And, sorry, the library is just announcing that they're closing soon, so we'll wrap up here. But I just wanted to thank everyone for coming. You can always get more information about all of our activities on our website. So once again, thanks again and enjoy your evening.